All right, so Donald Trump got elected president, the 47th president of the United States. He won. Now what? I was went to this coffee shop down the road uh, the next day, right, Wednesday morning, and this they're like, hey, they recognize me. We're celebrating, and we won, right? Donald Trump won. I'm listening to them talk, and they're talking about how drill baby drill's gonna come back, and their interest rates are gonna go down, and the economy's gonna take off. And I'm like, those don't go together. When traditionally when interest rates are up, or when the economy's racing, interest rates go up. So they used to slow it down. But I got to thinking about it, right? So we're going to talk about that. The the so I put this together in response to that. Okay. Um, what can the government do? So you got Trump as president. You got Republican Congress, controlled Congress, Republican controlled Senate. The conservative majority in the Supreme Court, man, we're stacked. Should be able to do a lot, right? Trump's going to be able to enact his tariffs on foreign products coming into this country, or make these companies build factories in the United States, which is going to stimulate job growth. Okay, he can do all that. Um, the could reduce taxation and government spending, and that's key. Okay, so what people don't really realize is when interest rates go up, it's all supply and demand. When the government is spending so much money, they're competing for financing. They're competing for that money from the public. And so what do? They increase reserve requirements, which makes banks, they can't lend as much money because they got to have more money on hand if they close every business day, or they get shut down by the FDIC. That's what happened in 2008, and it almost happened again in 2020 because of the repo crisis, the overnight lending crisis. All right, but you didn't hear a lot about that. But it was almost as much money the government had to bail out the banks. All right, because the big banks weren't buying the treasuries from the smaller banks because they are primarily used car loans. And with everything going electric, they're thinking, you know what? When people realize that their cars are worth less than they owe on them, they're gonna park alongside the highway, put the keys up over the visor, and walk away like they did their houses in 2008. And so the government had to come in and buy those treasuries so these banks could stay in business. They had to actually become the overnight lending source for the smaller banks because the bigger banks weren't doing it anymore. Yeah, did you know that? All right. So when the if we have drill baby drill is going to be back. We're going to have lower cost of energy, lower price of the gas pump, but that's also going to cause a lower um, cost of goods and services because the transportation to get the products to the store are going to cost less, right? It's going to cost less. That's going to have an effect. Lower taxes, that's going to have a positive effect. All right, but we still got $35 trillion budget deficit. That's up from 3.5 trillion back in 2008. Right, you see that IOUSA, the former U.S. comptroller David Walker goes into the whole thing, right? Well, they that that spending. This is what the government does. They spend all that money, right, and then they start printing money to pay off that debt. Okay, and actually just it causes more debt. but it dilutes the, 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 the amount of dollars in the economy. And when the money they pay back that debt to China or whoever else they owe, France, uh, they it's worth less than the money that was borrowed. So whoever lent the money is getting ripped off, right? And they don't like that. Okay. So that's you know that's what we're looking for is going to happen. So when Trump gets into Congress, gets into the White House, and he's got Congress and the Senate and on his side, okay, there's things he can do that are going to have an effect. There's the we used to have a lot of tariffs, okay, and on other countries' goods coming into the United States, all right, and then we went off when we went off the gold standard, all right, and then but we were the petrodollar. Well, now we're not none of that. Okay, we're not any of that. The reason we have $35 trillion in debt versus $3.5 trillion in debt, you know, 10 years ago is because 12 years ago, I guess now, the dollar's worth less because they've diluted it so much. That's why. Okay, you have to understand that. Okay, so here's the options. Okay, see, there's very little the government can do and Congress can do. What's got to be done is personal. People individually have to take responsibility and manage their finances the right way. So what are we looking at? Reducing taxes. How do you do that? Well, you got your money put in. There's three different types of buckets. There's the taxable bucket. If you get a return, you're going to get a 1099 to pay tax on that money. It's liquid. You can use it right now. That's your banks, your checking accounts, your savings accounts, your bank CDs, individual stocks, mutual funds. Okay, but if you get a return, you're going to pay tax on that gain. Then there's the tax deferred or the tax later category. That's going to be your 401k, your 403b, your TSP, your IRAs. Okay, you get a tax deduction on your contribution, so you pay less tax end of the year. But when when you're 72 and a half, it's a mandatory distribution. You got to pay tax on that money. You got to take that money out and pay the taxes. It's usually going to be more. The government made it that way. They wrote themselves in to be the winner. Then there's the tax advantage or tax never income. And that comes from a Roth IRA, but you're limited, $7,500 a year. 529 plans, municipal bonds, but they don't get a great rate of return. And then if there's state tax, you're going to pay state tax. Okay. Then there's cash value life insurance, whole life, universal life, variable universal life, index universal life. Okay. The you've already paid tax on that money. It's going to grow in the policy, tax deferred, so it's going to grow faster. And when you take that money out, it's tax advantage. You don't pay tax on that money. It's IRS code 7702 alpha makes that possible. All right. So what do? You take the money that's in your taxable accounts and you minimize that. You stop paying into it, any more than you have to, right? You reduce what you're putting into your tax deferred accounts. There's sometimes you're going to get a match, get a 3 to 6% match. That's 100% free money. Okay, so it makes sense to maximize that. Okay, but no more. Okay, then you want to defer that. You want to transfer that or replace that with the tax advantage income. That's going to be a Roth IRA or a cash value life insurance policy. Okay, so stop, reduce, and you can even do an in-service rollover on your qualified plans. Like you got a 401k, you can roll that over to a Roth 401k. You'll have to pay the tax, but they give you 3 years to pay the taxes. So it's less of it doesn't hurt you as bad. Okay. What you want to do is you want to take, see what you got in debt, and then what you have in savings. What you want to have is when you got more in savings than you do in debt, you're financially free. That's what we're trying to help you do. Okay. So this shows this example. And I've been a debt management consultant for a long time. and I would do a presentation talking to showing people how to do a debt roll up. So what that is you rank your debts, the highest debt's the smallest debt, and you add up the minimum debt service amount. You have extra money, $100 extra, or whatever, you apply that to the payment of the smallest debt. So I had an example. It was like $499,000 worth of debt, including a mortgage, and the payment was $2,782 a month. If I add an extra $100, making it $2,882 a month, paying your bills on time, right? You pay everything off include the mortgage in 15 years. And then, or 17 years. Then I learned about the pill method. That's where you just pay the principal amount based on the amortization schedule every month. So you have this case, this $2,782 a month, $500 a month was going toward principal. So you pay that mid-month, 11 days after the due date. So you're doing the first, you pay it on the 12th. You pay that debt off in 15 years doing it that way. But if you incorporate that with the debt roll-up strategy, got it, now everything's paid off in 12 years. That sounded really good, right? Then I learned about these family banking strategy or infinite banking strategies. So this is a scenario pretty much identical to what I had before, right? The guy's paying, $2,573.90 a month into the policy. Okay, so he's overfunded his policy enough to cover the target or the minimum scheduled premium, and the rest of that money's his. Okay, and he borrows from that and it pays his mortgage, right, every month, right, and then that money that goes into the policy is actually earning the guaranteed 5.125% interest, right, and he makes his premium payment, then he borrows the debt service amount out of the policy, pays his bills on time. Okay, at a little over 9 years, this guy's got $325,000 in the policy, which is how much he owes on the mortgage after that amount of time, paying his bills on time, right? And he pays it off, keeps paying that premium. Now he's paying himself back. By year 20, he's got a completely paid off house and $488,227 cash balance in his policy at year 20. Where before he'd have nothing more, except he'd still have debt to pay on the mortgage. Okay, so I'm like, what do you do, right? So I found a 4-unit right here in Cypress, Texas, right? He'd have enough money. He'd borrow like a line of credit on his primary residence, pay the down payment on the 4-unit property. The cash rents would be enough to cover the monthly rentals, would be enough to cover the debt service on both properties. Okay, and he'd have that completely paid off, both of them paid off, paying the same amount he was paying, right, in year 20, right? He'd have, starting from the first, already have a house paid off, borrow from it again, pay off the line of credit again, and pay off the mortgage on the 4-unit at year 20, where he still would have been paying on his primary mortgage and just had that with a debt. And now he's got $1,009,367 at age 73, right? Paying the same he's paying right now. Using that money that he'd be paying for the debt service, he's got 2 properties, a 4-unit, his primary residence, and over $1 million tax advantage in his policy, not including whatever he's got in his qualified plan, 401ks or whatever, right? That is the strategy. Okay. And here's the houses I used, showing the effective interest rate would be 3.54%, paid off in 10 years, right? And the 4-unit property, borrow against the primary residence, right? That debt would be paid off, paying the same he's paying in 7.86 years, and then the primary residence mortgage on the 4 unit will be paid off in less than 9 years. Okay, and you'd have two properties in less than 20 years and over $1 million tax advantage for his future. All right. So that same strategy, I mean, with real estate, it's easy. Real estate's like a business. The system's already set up to do it. Okay, it's a low employee. Uh, you don't have employees, right? Not a lot of them, right? Maybe you're a receptionist, right? And, and it depends how many people you have. You're a brokerage or whatever, right? But if you're just a real estate investor, okay, every house you buy is like another business, okay, and so it's easy to talk about real estate using this way. Okay, so this is the hub and spoke model for business, right? And you have other businesses supporting your main business, okay, but similar to the real estate investing strategy. Okay, this is nothing new. The U.S. Steel was formed by a bunch of companies that were trying to compete with Carnegie Steel, and Carnegie Steel got together and formed U.S. Steel. And these other manufacturers, they made they did shipbuilding, they built trains and railroads and telegraph lines and barbed wire. Okay, and they all got together and using the steel production with Carnegie Steel created U.S. Steel, right? And so it's nothing new. All these other businesses supported the main business. Okay, I used to work for High Sierra Group. Same guy was the owner. Retired Army Ranger Colonel, Vietnam vet, had a PhD, had his own university, Sears University, that was set up to support the produce industry. Okay, and the Series Inspection Services, they help. They would do the inspections, partner with Primus to do their Primus inspections every year, right? They had Series Consulting. They would have people that would consult with the produce warehouses, and so they help them, coach them along so they could pass their Primus inspections and stay in business. And then the AME certified laboratories, that the NASA scientists that came up with the PCR system has started a business, and they actually, so these guys have partnered with them, and they have set up these labs in the warehouses so they don't have to ship the samples out and then get their results right away, right, and stay in compliance. But they can do it right there in-house. All these different businesses supported that industry, and the main that same guy had either owned them outright or had interest in all of these businesses. Okay, so I've seen this. I was his rep for the Rio Grande Valley, right? I was talking to somebody about somebody there's the Quick Mount Heroes Initiative. It's a franchise where they do the audiovisual centers for homes and businesses. And if you're a veteran, they waive the $45,000 franchise fee. And churches and well, you did four installations a day, 4 flat screens a day. Your gross revenue is $7,500 a month. I introduced them to LED City, and so they could have access to their digital signage. If they mounted one 10 by 20 flat screen in a church or an event center a month, they double their income, right? And then I'm like, if they partnered up with a event centers, the weddings, quinceañeras, and maybe MMA or boxing events or whatever, I've seen it happen, right? And then they had, they're all going to need photography and videography. They partnered up with somebody who could do that, And I'm talking to the guy from church that actually was a producer in Hollywood, and tell him what I'm thinking. He's going, he knew a guy that produced, but he didn't make all his money doing video production. He made all his money on his energy drink. They did the videos, the cool skydiving videos, and wave runner, and mountain climbing videos to sell the energy drink. Okay, so that's a so this is nothing new. It happens all the time. Get that multiple streams of income. Okay, so why is that important? Well, with the with, we got to have 880,000 Americans who are being supported by the government. They're getting paid through the entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government pensions, to come off of that source of income and earn at least $50,000 a year from a business that's actually set up to run without them, a true business, or their investments are a combination of both. And that's what I help people do, right? And with the Build to Exit. So that Build to Exit podcast on X is going to be tomorrow morning, same time I'm doing this video, 8 o'clock, right? And it's on X. The Jason Cisneros, so you can get on that podcast, all right, tomorrow. And he puts out good information, but his sweet spot is small businesses that are earning $300,000 annual income. Then he consults them and he's to get them to $750,000 annual income. So he's looking for sole proprietor to 499 employees earning $300,000 a year to get them to the $750,000 a year. Then he's got private capital investors looking for those type of business to invest in. Right? But what if you're not the 300? Well, he's got the growth course. Okay, that's a $10,000 cost for the growth course, and but you need the consulting to go with it, but to help you get to that. If you can't do that, right, you're that's too much for you, right? I can help you. I can help you get to that point. We'll find just like the Quick Mount Heroes Initiative, where four flat screens a day, 5 days a week would get you $7,500 a month, but adding one other element, a flat screen digital video, a 10 by 20 video wall, would double your income. So I use every resource I got, right, to help do that, to inject growth in your business so you could attain that level to get a higher level of consulting and production. So that's what this is about. And then using the banking strategies, keep your money, leverage those to buy other businesses and keep the growth going. That's part of what's going to help bring back this economy in this country, because the government's not going to be able to do it all. If Trump can get everything going, the tariffs, lowering taxes, that's going to be in reducing government spending. Those three things are going to help a lot. But even if they don't, if people set themselves up where they can be sustainable with the business of their own, their investments, or a combination of both, they can make it happen for themselves, even if Trump is having a hard time implementing his strategies, what he wants to do. All right, so that's what this election has in store for you. Okay, this is what you can look forward to. This is what you can look out for. Reducing taxes, starting tariffs on foreign products coming to this country, right, and reducing government spending. That's what the government can do, right? But they, usually in my industry, when the Democrats come into power, it becomes, people get really strong sense of urgency to get in those products that defer the taxes or are tax advantaged because the government starts raising taxes. People don't like that. Okay. But that didn't happen. Okay. So what can happen, and you can be part of it, not just leave it up to the government, but be part of the solution. Right. I hope this helps you understand, and thanks for coming on.